Child, not Tommy said, get somebody else to do it. Y'all, let's get into this new iteration of Ready to Love, aka Make a Move. Hey y'all, support this channel by smashing that like button. Your likes not only make my day, but they also tell YouTube that you also enjoy this content. Also, don't forget to hit the notification button. That way you can be alerted as soon as I drop a new episode. Thanks. What's up, Question Crew? We are back for another season of, no, we are back for a new season, for a new show. We are back for Ready to Love, Make a Move, honey. And they are taking us down to the bayou, and we are trying out something new because now we are not doing the same old, same old. We're not doing a gang of mixed bag contestants, honey, with people. We are bringing back four of our favorite ladies to see what it's going to be like if they link up and what's going to happen when they start living in a house and everything starts to get real. I feel like I'm going into the real world when I'm saying this dynamic because it very much gave me that. It gave me real world Louisiana without the budget because it was a little bit of a tight house. But we are trying to see if our ladies mix some Zydeco, some Cajun, some Creole, some po' boys, some bounce music, and love, what will happen. Let's get into who they decided to bring back to see if this remix works. So first up walking into the house is our girl Ashley. And you know, Ashley was on the inaugural, the first season of Ready to Love, honey. And Ashley is now 36. And you know, when she started, she was the youngest person on the show. I think she was either in her late 20s or literally 30 when she was on Ready to Love. And Ashley's the first person to arrive at the house. She lets us know, honey, that it's been a journey. And, you know, she didn't end up with her person. Ashley hooked up with Alex in the very first season. She thought she was going to find her forever best friend, and that didn't end up happening. And we kind of remember Ashley and Alex's story, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But I know that, you know, I thought that for them as well. Initially, you know, there were only a few people that seriously linked up by the end of the season per usual. And Ashley was one of them. Her and Alex linked up very kind of in the middle of the show because Alex actually had another love interest named Tiffany. And, you know, they were trying to work out. She was a bit older than Ashley. And that was the whole dynamic between Ashley, Alex, and Tiffany. Tiffany was supposed to be the older, more mature one. And, you know, she felt like Tiffany kind of played a little bit against Ashley, making it seem like Ashley was too immature to date him. And she turned out to actually be a solid individual with just a very upbeat way of thinking in life. And Tiffany and Alex kind of got into it midway the season, and his other interest, Ashley, he started giving more time to, and they ended up working out. But at the end of the day, it did not. And Ashley wants to let us know she's moving on to better things. And next up, we got our girl Vernisha. And Vernisha was on my favorite season. And when I got introduced to the show, Houston. And Vernisha is 42. And she was grown then. She was grown now. Vernisha linked up with Joelle on the season of Houston. And they hit it off instantly. We were all really into them because they were just they seemed like they were going to be our grown and sexy couple. And it did not end up matching up in the end. And Vernisha is back because she wants to meet a man that matches her energy. She wants to meet a man that takes care of her the way she would take care of her man. She wants somebody that keeps good social energy around them. And she wants somebody who is still a social butterfly. She's about to be a empty nester because, you know, she's raising like the very last of her children that's about to go off to school. And she wants to have a thriving love life and social life when that's all done. So she back to see if she could dip her foot in this pool again and get something better when it came out before. Introduced to the house is Charisse. Charisse is our oldest lady on the show, and she is the one who will definitely bring what would be a sense of maturity because, you know, Charisse is established and doing her thing with her own business, honey, but she will also bring the best shenanigans because Charisse is extra. And Charisse is extreme, and her energy is something that I think will make the dynamic of the show, the drama part we need. Charisse is going to bring that. She is not bringing a moving forehead. She still has the extreme Botox, and that causes her face to look very pulled. And I'm hoping she's not bringing the nastiness that she had with Dominica because we really didn't need that. If y'all remember, Charisse's biggest issue just wasn't with getting into it with some of the men, but also and not making it work with Samson, even though Samson was horrible. But Charisse also had an issue with Dominica on the show. She was a young lady who, you know, came in and she was very nice and very gregarious, but Charisse thought she was a little too ghetto. And it made her turn off with some of the ladies and some of the people that watched the show. Personally, Sharice I wasn't a favorite for her after that moment. But Sharice did keep the show lively. And I feel like as long as she stays, if she can't be somebody and totally change up, we need somebody to be in their villain era. And Sharice brings that level of authenticity. And rounding out our ladies with that nose ring, honey, is Zadia. And Zadia is 37. She's a year older than Ashley. And she was from the DC season of Ready to Love. There was so much drama with Zadia and her personality and attitude. And by the end of the season, she was definitely in like a whole gang and clique based on colorism. Honey, I don't know what was going on in that season. It was just too much for our soul. But Zadia is back. And Zadia's drama was she had some issues around a guy named Dante. She got in his face. She had a lot of attitude problems that caused her to have like a rift individually with people. And she even was very disrespectful within her season with a man who was not giving her that level of energy and probably should have been eliminated, but they allowed her to stay. And at the end of it, she really learned nothing during the reunion and ultimately linked up with a lame dude that tried to come to her rescue for her bad attitude just for them to end 10 months later. So we're seeing Zadia back, and hopefully we feel like she's learned some lessons, but I can't really tell in this episode. Either way, she'll best fight with Sharice, and that'll make for good drama on TV. And y'all, I really want to touch on Ashley and her discussions about Alex, and I really am very proud with Ready to Love for allowing Ashley to give her side of the story. For most people who don't know or maybe new to the series, and in this series in particular, Ashley and Alex made it to the end. Like I said, he had a thing for the lady Tiffany, and then they ended up like kind of not seeing eye to eye midway. And he had already kind of had Ashley as somebody that he was also interested in, and they ended up kicking it off well, or rather hitting it off well with each other. And they eventually linked up and got together. And so everything was really great. And unfortunately, at the end of the show, although they picked each other for the reunion, we come to the reunion and we find out that Alex is actually in a coma. And so we find out that Alex got severely sick once, they left the show. Him and Ashley started dating like regular folks. They were hanging out together all the time. I mean, doing everything. It was really an emotional time for the reunion because, they had her out there sitting on the couch across from another couple by herself. And she was explaining that, during the, once they stopped filming, her and Alex were together all the time. They were having a good time doing stuff every day. They really had become best friends. And one day he got sick and Alex could not, they thought it was just a common cold. They went to the hospital. He kept having these issues like with the cold where he just started feeling worse and worse, and the hospital kept sending him back home. Eventually they stopped sending him home and he had to be rushed to the hospital. And that's when they found out that he had like a infection. They said it was like the flu or influenza B, but it turned out to be a little bit more severe and it traveled to his brain. So after a while, he couldn't even respond to her or his family. Now, mind you, him and Ashley had just come off this show and they were a couple, but they were a new couple, and she wasn't his wife. So, she was doing all of the things that you're supposed to be doing as really that a spouse would do, or a significant other who had been in somebody's life that long, because she was a very dedicated lady to helping him get better. But it seems that like she may have butt heads with his parents or his sister and his mom. From my understanding, Alex went on to explain this, way after. And so they eventually like broke up, and Ashley just felt like, Alex didn't fight for them specifically and didn't appreciate all the things that she did, because Ready to Love did a follow-up with Alex after the reunion, because we just never heard anything. We just kind of saw videos of him online getting better. We didn't know what was going on with him and Ashley. She wouldn't speak on it at first. She eventually went on to say that, Alex came back on Ready to Love, talked to him, and they asked him about his condition, and they did a follow-up with him. And he did the entire follow-up and did not mention or thank Ashley individually once. And they never really asked him more about that. It was the craziest thing we had ever seen. Like, you went from not showing up to the reunion because you obviously couldn't medically, and then you get on there, we're hearing all these things this woman is doing for you. She's updating even the public about what's going on and just letting them know like he's okay. Thank you for the prayers. And we hear nothing about her in this segment. Alex then went online later on and basically stated that, when he started to get better, started to come out of stuff, Ashley, his mother and his sister were saying that Ashley was overstepping and she was, too involved with the recovery part of everything and all this back and forth stuff. So it is interesting that Ready to Love, gave Ashley the floor to say, no, this is what really happened. This man wasn't real. His real name was Courtney. It wasn't Alex. He didn't even have an apartment in his name. His car was in his sugar mama. What was Alex doing with a sugar mama on this show? But had a sugar mama who the car was in his name. And now we're getting a clearer picture because it just didn't make a lot of sense to us. And it made no real scope as to what was happening with the two of them and why they just didn't work out. So I appreciate Ready to Love giving Ashley the floor to tell her side of the story. And talking about sides of the story, honey, I am so glad that they were able to touch on Venetia and Joel. And if you remember Venetia and Joel, honey, we're talking about Houston. We're talking about season 3. We're talking about the two of them linking up initially. We were all rooting for them. You know, Venetia, Joel had 3 children and he had a widowed wife, honey. And Venetia had 3 kids and they were just ready. She had been married already. It was like just ready to link up. They felt grown. They felt sexy to us. They were very into each other from the very beginning. And we really didn't even see Joel overly be interested in too many of the other women. It felt like they were more so pushing him to date somebody else. At least that's what we thought. And so I think everybody watching the show at the time was so into them being this grown and sexy couple who knew what they wanted. They had children. We're going to be this extended family if we do make it out of this series together and grow our relationship. And people were rooting for them. And then, you know, before the midway, Joel made a little mistake there. He tried to check her, but he fixed it up quick enough, and we was like, okay, we back on track. We back on track. So it was no shock that they picked each other at the end. And then for this to escalate to the reunion, honey, they were sitting apart from each other and not even talking. And Renisha said less than 2 weeks after they got off the show, he changed up. He started making it seem like she was tied in too strong and that she was, pushing the relationship too much. And the thing about it is that she said, I was moving at the speed that we were both moving. I was moving at the speed that the man was moving. I was matching his energy. So I wouldn't do anything to like throw myself at you or make you seem like, it was more than what it was if you weren't also making it seem that way. And then come to find out, unfortunately, Venetia got caught up in the same thing that Ashley got caught up in with the lies, because Joel was not even who he claimed to be, honey. Why during the season? Joel came on here stating that he was a widower with 3 kids that lived in Texas, but moved from Louisiana, honey, because he loved to throw on occasion every 5 minutes. And he mentioned that he was a single dad raising these children. Come to find out, his ex-wife, who did pass away, her best friend came out online and just spilled a lot of tea about him during the season because they didn't like the way that they was carrying it. It wasn't just his ex-wife, it was also another family member that came out online. But come to find out that the way that Joel had played it to us, he had played it as if he had just lost his wife. And they were married up until the time that he got on the show, maybe a year or so in between, let's say. So we're thinking this is a new man who's newly widowed. Come to find out, child, this man had been divorced for at least 2-3 years by the time he came on the show. His wife did pass away, but she was not his wife at the time. When she got sick and passed away from cancer, they were already divorced. She was raising money on GoFundMe through a friend for her medical expenses. The friend went on to say, like, Joel had several relationships in between that. Like, there were other people who had addressed Venetia online and had contacted her. And Venetia came out live and told all of this information in this tea, honey. So this man was not who he claimed to be. On top of all of that, midway through the season, we find out that Joel wants to be a rapper. A 40-year-old rapper, honey. Good and grown. Way too grown for this. And he tried to rap to her on the reunion. So when I tell you she dodged a bullet, she dodged a bullet. But let y'all check it out for yourself.
I mean this with much love, cause coffee is my main girl. Coffee makes me feel good. Coffee makes me feel smart. That's why my drip is smart. My drip is smart. My drip is smart. My drip can't be bought. My drip can't be bought.
So when I tell you she dodged a bullet, she dodged a bullet. Anyway, back to the ladies. They're still finishing up their emotional powwow and all the things that stress them out about their situations. And Ashley gets emotional and she just says that, she forgives Alex, but she'll, never forget that. And she's moving on to better and better things, honey. So right as the ladies are having a discussion about all their hopes that they're wishing for with this experience, they talk about what their ideal guy would be. that he's cute, he's smart, he's fit. Honey, because Ashley says she don't want nobody shaped like her auntie. Not Mr. Potato Head. And anyway, a woman walks out of nowhere and says hi and welcomes them back into the house. So they all rush into the house and she introduces herself as Tamika Lee. She says she's the new host of the show and she's also a professional matchmaker. She brings up the different situations that have happened with them and talks about the just the importance of them taking the freshness of this process as a renewal for them to find love and to, you know, get a better result than what they got with the previous seasons. I actually really love that Ready to Love obviously brought somebody new in because we just need somebody else than Tommy, especially for a new type of show. I think it's great that we brought in a woman because I think it could just bring a different perspective to the show. And the other women on the couch are in agreement of that. I think it's really always a good idea that you bring in somebody who's married because, as Tamika stated, she's married for 16 years. She has 2 children. And she said that her and her spouse are living the life that they want to live. And I think that having somebody that's married that can show what the success of that looks like and how you work through those issues is really helpful. And I also think a professional matchmaker is better at maybe connecting people because they do this for a living. It makes me really wonder what happened to the show that Owen had on that got canceled. I don't know if y'all remember, but they had a show about a season or two ago that played during the pandemic called Love Match. And this is exactly what the show's premise was. Professional matchmakers, I believe they were in Atlanta. There was like a man and 2 women that all had services that did this for Black folks there. And I just didn't understand why that show got canceled because I actually really liked it. Um, so, Tamika points out that the women haven't made success in their hometowns, and maybe them trying something new in a different town will bring different results. I think that also is a great aspect about this new show and the fact that they're trying something with saying, well, hey, what hasn't worked. Let's try something different. And that is something that people actually do in real life. Whether they're seeking love or just new job opportunities, folks feel like sometimes what you got to do is you got to get out of your own way. Sometimes you got to get out of your old space and move to a new place to find what you've been looking for, especially in major cities like LA and New York and Atlanta, all these like areas where there's like a large amount of singles, but the dating pool is kind of not that great. If you're looking for somebody who has certain values and stuff like that, you may have to go to a smaller town or to a smaller area or vice versa to, find what you're looking for. She says that she's helpful with the ladies moving to Orleans because, this is a city where you can fall in love and that she feels like they're worth it and that, they should take advantage of this opportunity. And I think she's absolutely correct. Because even just trying this out, the reality of actually moving to a new city functionally in real life would be very difficult. And I think the idea of them just sort of tapping their foot in the water, letting somebody else pay for your stay while you figure out if this is somebody that you can connect with is actually really, really smart and very, best, I think, less struggly in reality. Because if you do meet somebody and y'all end up kicking it and y'all end up liking each other and you do actually have to move, there's a lot of moving parts that go to that. um I think we all best saw the version of that in Why Did I Get Married To when Jill Scott, her husband, was moving to Atlanta. He had no job. That's the reality. If you end up like shacking and deciding that you want to go ahead and move with somebody, move to another city to find love, or you end up finding love someplace else and you and another person move somewhere else. Like there's a lot of moving parts to you finding a job, finding a place to live, all those different things. So being able to sort of dip your toe in the water, see what's going on, see if you like it. I think this actually is a good idea. Okay, honey. So we move on to Miss Tamika getting a little bit more of the backstories of the ladies. It's the first time they meeting her. So she wants to just know more about why it's been so hard to find love from their perspective. And she goes to Zadia, and Zadia says that she doesn't like the dating scene in DC. She feels like she's full of poo poo and cesspits, I believe. I don't know. And she just doesn't want to be done with it. I mean, I'm not sure that the dating pool liked her back, but let's continue on. She says that people in DC are very specific about what she wants, and that doesn't give her enough time, or rather, it doesn't give her the ability to show who she truly is in her fullness. She doesn't want to just give a portion of her. I realize at this point that Zadia is and will always be the problem, and it shows up much later on. But I feel like DC was just a bad representation of what the DMV dating scene is like, specifically the season. I feel like there are, just like any other major metro city, there are challenges, but I did not feel like that cast showed everybody on that cast rather showed the reality of what it is to date there. And, some contestants were worse than others when it came to that situation. And for me, Zadia would have not worked in multiple cities because of her energy and her attitude. So I didn't understand how we fell back into not really recognizing that. She did sort of make some inference about the fact that she has to work on her situation. But honestly, I just felt like it was Zadia in this season. Then Tamika moves on to Vernisha, and Vernisha says that, her situation is a bit different because she has three children. She has a child in her 20s, she has an 18-year-old, she has like a 15-year-old. And, it's not just about her when she's dating, but it's about her kids. And obviously, she's talking from the single parent angle. And of course, as we talked about earlier, the sadness that ended up not being her and Joel just because he was faking the funk when it came to that. And her ultimate goal is to not just meet somebody, but also meet somebody that's going to be able to incorporate a blended family. Even though she only has one minor child at home, she has kids in school, and she also is a person that is into being a mom, but also being a social individual and, you know, still having a good time. And she's almost about to be an empty nester once her last child goes to college, and she wants somebody thinking along those lines. Honey, why after the first two told their stories, Tamika cut them off? She said she didn't even listen to the rest of the explanation. Funny, I guess maybe because they gave them up front. But she's like, look, let's just get into what the premise of this show is. And also it was a nice change to get a change from Tommy. Sometimes Tommy's quietness or his listening is helpful, but I guess they want to drive this storyline along. So they said let's continue on to the next part of this episode. So Tamika mentions to them that she's going to link them up currently with 25 single men, and she's going to do it now. When I tell you it was game show on, she said they need to go upstairs and change because she got these 25 men coming to the house as of right now, and y'all not ready. Renisha said she didn't know those 25 single men, or rather quality men, that existed out there. And Tamika said, girl, we ain't got time for that. Go ahead and change because these men are on their way. And they got them surrounded out by this tight ass pool in the back of the yard. And when I tell you the pickings around this little backyard slip and slide, it's okay. The men come well dressed, which I appreciate. Most of them seem to be know what a suit look like. Sometimes in the other seasons of Ready to Love, we didn't even see that, honey. And you got tall ones, short ones, bald ones, bright ones, light ones, dark ones, everything, honey. We had a variety of men. So I appreciate that they really tried to up the ante on the pickings. And I'm really liking this format of the women choosing the guys. So the ladies come down in their change clothes, and I have to say the outfits were very cute. I think my favorite look, actually everybody kind of looked great, but I think my favorite looks were Zadia and Vernisha. Although I did like what Charisse had on as well. I don't know, it was a little formal for me. And then Ashley's was very cute. It was a little clubbish. You can definitely just tell she's the youngest one of the bunch. But everybody went upstairs and did a nice little job coming downstairs, honey, to match the energy. So I appreciate that the women put efforts into their looks and came out looking great because I think they all look beautiful. And the colors looked astounding on them. Can we give a shout out to Charisse for that fan, honey? It was just nice. I don't know if Sharice's going through a private summer. She the oldest one of the group, honey. I think she's like 46 years old. So it could be that. But, for people who have ever visited New Orleans or lived there, or live in the Delta, live in the South, you know how hot it can get. I don't care what you wearing on what day. And so it was hilarious to me that Sharice got that little fan. I actually have that fan. I have two of them, one the pink and one the black. They're great for makeup. But also just on a hot summer day when you be out and people be making fun of you when you got that fan out. But then they be trying to get close to you, honey, when they get a little warm up in the area. So I appreciate that Sharice had that little fan out. I love this dynamic. I definitely, like I said, I think it's different. And Tamika lets them know that all the men that they see are available to them, but they have to just pick one now. There is no conversation. There is no, getting to know you mixer like we have with the other, version of Ready to Love. You're going to pick your person initially that you want to have more of a conversation with off of a visual pick, honey. So it's time to go. The ladies are feeling a little overwhelmed, and it's a weird process for them because in the past they used to come into a big home, they sit down, with a bunch of different men throughout the course of the night, and they get to know them, and they get to know each other, and then the whole group eliminates two people from there that they don't think are ready to love, and then they spend the entire season getting to know more and more of each other. She said, we switching it up. We ain't doing that. So go ahead and pick your man, and you're going to talk with him after you pick who you have, and then y'all will see from there if this is the person for you. So Venetia's up first, and she's looking around, and then she picks her guy, then Zadia, And then Sharice is looking at everybody up and down, honey, saying she's checking for hygiene and other things past just the basic visual. Again, like I said, I love Sharice being there. She gonna keep this season funny. And for the most part, I feel like all of the ladies picked decent looking guys. And then Ashley picked a guy who I think gives a little bit of F boy energy, but he was well dressed. And the ladies head back into the house. So we back in the house from the mixer and mosquitoes energy that was given outside, honey. And Miss Ashley has picked Donald. He's 35 and he's a videographer. And Ashley basically asked Donald what he's looking for in a woman, and he says, "It's you." And we already know that he's gonna be corny. And he starts to give her like blanket answers, and Ashley can sense that, but she has like a funness about her that she's trying to keep the conversation lively. Although I will say this. My thing with Ashley is I love that she's like bubbly and has a good personality, but she kind of started to kind of get a little too animated during their conversation, and it gave immaturity. Um, and I feel like anytime that you're operating in a space where you want something different than what you had before, you have to give something different than what you've been given before. And I feel like if you were trying to have a more serious conversation with this man, take yourself a little bit more serious in the process. She was doing too much, touching his leg back and forth. It was just a lot going on. And I felt like if you invite that type of, circus energy, you're going to attract the clown, girl. So I didn't really understand what was going on there. And I really feel like she could have did better. I think, like, yes, when we first met Ashley, she was younger, but she's 36 now. You're looking for a grown man with serious things that wants to take you seriously and not play with your heart, then you gotta dial it back, mama, and take the process serious. So next up, we go back outside with Zadia, and she has picked Richard. He's 41 and he's a school principal. I thought he was a nice looking guy, a little, locks with tied back and everything like that. Nice little combo on. And I always kind of felt like, okay, I want to see where this is going because Richard is a school principal and a school principal in New Orleans, honey. That ain't no joke. And I automatically feel like, okay, this man's gonna be a little too serious, or I didn't know what to think. And I'm like, okay, I would love to see, the side of him, just to see where his head is at. Because what I am liking is that we're seeing these men with real job titles, with real gigs. I want to see, what the situation is. To be honest, I thought it was a nice twist because he's a bit older. And I feel like, he'll have a coolness to him, but also a seriousness because he is a school principal. You got to have that balance. So he starts off the conversation and asks Zadia, like, what happened in your last relationship? And she's like, oh, we're going there so quickly? Like, that's a little much. Let's recircle back to that. So Zadia complains that he's jumping in too fast and, he doesn't even know where she's from. And so he says, okay, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. And then she goes, you don't want to be more specific? I mean, this reminded me of why we did not like Zadia like that in DC. Girl, you just spent the last 10, 15 minutes before this telling Tamika that you did not like that the DC scene was so specific and people were too specific about what they wanted, and you wanted to spread your wings. This man is giving you a chance to be an eagle child. And all you're giving is that's not specific enough. You need to be clear. Girl, he's asking you who you are because he has not met you. We just met 5 minutes ago and you picked me off of my visual alone. I don't know you, you don't know me. So tell me more about yourself. And it's like it just didn't even snap for her. She just automatically is in negative mode saying, oh, this is going to be a boring conversation. This is the problem. And I'm just like, girl, you are the problem. This man does not know you. He's trying to get to know you, answer your question. And she's just an embarrassment to me sometimes, just in terms of how she engaged with him. It was unnecessary. He was a complete stranger. He never approached her verbally, disrespectfully, for what we can see on camera. And it was just like, what was with the animosity off rip? I did not understand that. It was very much giving, basic questions, but it is what you're going to give somebody in an initial part of this. This is no difference from a job interview, honey. When they ask you about yourself, they got a little bit about your resume, but they don't know everything. You have to give them the rest of the full picture. So I just was like, I could see why you're single. So he asked her another question, hopping in there again, trying to keep it going. And he says, where do you see yourself maybe in the next 5 to 10 years? And this man is on his third question, honey. And I am literally feeling so bad for him. And she's like, he's making it harder than it needs to be. This is one of the things. I'm just not going to settle. I'm just not going to be dealing with that. Zadia, if you don't keep playing around, you're going to be living at home with some cats. If you don't grow up and learn how to have an adult conversation, you can get into a funner space with the conversation, but you're going to start off with the basics with almost anybody. I think she just lacks the patience. She says that her time is valuable and that this is her second time on a reality show. So I don't know how valuable your time really is because you're doing this for the second time. And then she just walks off and leaves that man sitting there. So next up, we got Sharice and Antonio. Antonio is 38 and he is a Marine Corps engineer officer. Sir, just say you're an officer in the Marine Corps. I hate when the military folks need to always throw in the officer part. We get it. We get it. You don't really need to tell people anything like that about your position. You could just say what you do. What's your MOS, sir? I'm an engineer. I'm a cook. I am whatever, whatever. You don't have to put the officer part. We'll eventually figure that out. We get it. It's so weird. Sharice lets him know that she's been an esthetician for 20 years. We could tell, girl, because the Botox is still very prominent with her face, so you know it does not move. And Sharice says that she's from Baltimore originally, and her family's from there, but she resides in Miami. And he ends up telling her that his family is also from Baltimore. She says, she doesn't have any kids. He says he has 3 kids. He has a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And just like Sharice, the rest of us are going, 4 years old, that's kind of young. And we have to think about that because anytime that you meet a man and the younger them kids are, honey, you starting to think how close is he to that baby mama? How is that situation still going along? Do y'all get along? Are y'all still trying to get back together? That child is very, very, very new. She asked him if he want more kids, and he says that he's willing to have as many kids as she's willing to push out. And Sharice actually initially likes the idea of this because she doesn't have any kids. She did mention on her season of Ready to Love that she was interested in still possibly having children, and she likes the fact that Antonio will be open to having more children, despite the fact that he has 3. But the fact that he has 3 is also problematic for her. Um, it's just an interesting little conversation that they're having, but it's dry as hell too, to a certain degree. It's something about him I just feel like it's very much, I'll give you the answer I think you like. But again, the event takes a weird turn, and we go from these individual meetups to everybody's just mixing with everybody. So next up, we got Jabari, and he is 43 and a program analyst, and he is the guy that Venetia has picked. And he's a program analyst, honey, so he sounds like he had a good government job. And Venetia asks him if he has any kids, and he says yes, he has a daughter that goes to Prairie View, A&M in Texas. And Venetia says, hey, my daughter goes to Prairie View. So they already have something good kicking it off. They're around the same age. And it's showing a little HBCU love, and they start going on deeper in their conversation, and it seems to be a good conversation. They have a lot in common. He mentions to her that he gets out to Texas, because he has a daughter there and he has friends there, and that's good because Venetia obviously lives in Houston. She lets him know that she's a salon owner, and he says, okay, so you a boss. And he says, well, how do you turn the boss energy off? And she says, well, the right man in my life, and that is not a problem. And I feel like that's the case with a lot of women. I talked about this in the very last season of Ready to Love, that people be so afraid of women to be in charge and leaders and CEOs, and what will that mean? And I do think that some people, especially people who have a type A personality where they're usually in charge and usually the one making the decision and calling the shots, that sometimes it can be difficult to turn it off. But if you are in a relationship with a woman, if you have a very traditional sense about your household or anything like that, and you feel like, hey, I have a partner that I respect and I want him to lead the household, and you know how to lean back when it's necessary. At the same time, that doesn't mean that he has to diminish who you are or diminish the presence that you have in your home simply because he needs to show some type of dominance. That women will naturally fall into place when you are naturally a leader as a man and doing what you need to do. So Venetia says, I know how to turn it off. It's not an easy thing to do, but if you're a steady lead, take the roles you control. So Jabari says that he likes her. She's easy on the eye, and they seem to be having like just a good conversation. Like I said, honey, everybody mixing with everybody, and that means that Zadia gets to annoy another person, and so she heads off around the house somewhere, and she runs into Jabari, and they continue, with the mixer energy, which is interesting because it's the same person that Venetia has hit it off with. But hey, everybody's up for free grabs, I guess. I think it is that Jabari has a really easygoing personality. And, him and Zadia start talking, and right away they hit it off because they also have that HBCU connection. And, she actually says that she went to college in Texas. And he says, okay, he went to Texas Southern. And Zadia says that she went to University of Houston. And I want to laugh, but I was like, I don't know anybody who went to University of Houston but Lil Wayne. But anyway, and I don't even think he finished classes. But Zadia says that she went there, and of course that gives them that Texas connection. It gives them that HBCU connection, and they're hitting it off. And she having a better time than she was with the school principal, honey. So Zadia is really enjoying herself. Anyway, Temecula comes back out and asks him to join her back in the house, honey, because the conversations are over and she needs to know what these women are thinking about these men. So the ladies sit back down on the couch, dressed so cute as ever, and they start talking to her about their mix and mingle and how the different conversations worked. All of the women are interested in still continuing to hang out with the guy that they're interested in, but there is a connection that is similar for two women. So we know Zadia didn't hit it off with her guy, but she hit it off with Jabari, who is the guy that Vernisha picked. And Tamika lets them know, look, everybody's up for grabs. So if you end up linking up with somebody who wasn't your initial pick, but during this conversation with these men, you found that they are somebody you're interested in getting to know, it's up for fair game because this next step is you going on a first date with all of these men. Well, with the men you chose, rather. And so Ashley picks Don, her pick initially. Sharice picks Antonio, her same pick initially. Renisha picks Jabari, her initial pick. And Zadia also picks Jabari because she hit it off the vest with him, and nobody owns anybody. So up first is Ashley and Don, and they are eating on a pier. And right then I saw a sign that said no alligators, and I was like, see, this is why I don't play around. I don't play with the no eating by alligators, honey. I don't know if y'all saw that viral video where that people were having some type of like little get together on the pier, and this lady decided to drop some food in the water, and the alligator jumped up and got it, and then proceeded to try to climb onto the pier, and it was starting to get wobbly. I don't have time to play with that. So I need to be indoors, safe from all hurt, harm, and danger. I don't like that whole, with the possibility you might die on a date. And this is just the initial situation. So Miss Ashley walks in. Dawn is already seated, and she comes strolling in, and Dawn is feeling her outfit. I have to say, this is something that I love that Black men constantly compliment us on, which is the whole sundress moment. I don't know a Black man who don't love a sundress moment. I mean, the dress is all fitted and clinging, and especially if a woman is well groomed, nails, hair is done, they go crazy. So I thought Ashley looked great for a first date. It's on a pier. It's very simplistic. He's dressed well. She sits down, greets him. They have a fun little, chit chat for a quick minute, and then the woman comes out. The waitress comes out with a big plate of crawfish. And she was looking back a little too much. Ma'am, are you interested in the cameras? Or are you interested in the man? Either way, mind your business and go back inside your job. So Ashley asked, Dawn as they're sitting down, look, I just want you to keep it real with me. I don't want no fake, no phony. I had that. I want authenticity when it comes to this process. And she feels like she's laid everything out plain and honest. And she wants to know, like, is he serious about having a serious relationship? Is he serious about meeting somebody? And he says, yes, I am serious in this process. I want to meet somebody. I want to have something, if the quality is there, that could be long term. And she says, hey, look, what you see is what you get with me. I'm the same person from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And, this is always me. I'm always lit. And he said, so what happened after 6 p.m.? And she said, demon time. I really love Ashley again in her authenticity. But I worry about sometimes if she's showing as much depth. But this is the early episodes and this is the early conversation with a new date. So I think it is fun that she sort of is very light with the conversation. But I will say I want to see her go deeper as this process continues and show like the highs and the lows. Because I think sometimes when people give across the energy that they're always upbeat, they're always gregarious, people think that you're always okay, even when you may not be. And they don't expect you to have too many lows, so they don't check in on you as much as they should. I think it's important up front to give a guy the balance of knowing who you are and that you're normally in best spirits, but be honest about the fact that you have, your down times too. And people should know that naturally, but sometimes they don't because some people play that role very well. Don says he actually enjoys her energy and her attitude, and he's never met anybody like her before. She asked him what his love language is, and I love that question because I feel like we're in a stage and place now where we really understand the love languages, and being able to communicate that gives you an early insight to somebody and how they operate and if that'll really link up for you. And I think because we're so familiar with it as a society, I think it's a great opening question. So he says his two love languages are acts of service and quality time, or at least his primary ones are. And I absolutely love that because acts of service is one of mine as well. And you gotta love Ashley for being hopeful. But I have to say, for me personally, I'm not really into people who are lit all the time. I don't. I know she was trying to say, like, look, I'm always upbeat, but to be honest with you, that can get on your nerves. I'm more of a middle ground person. Like I have my great, I'm usually upbeat, positive energy, but I still have like I'm very chill and reserved to a certain degree. I ain't really into somebody who's just always bouncing off the walls like ticker every 5 minutes. And I know that for some people that can work, and she's right, that will fit with a certain type of person. And it's good to let people know up front what they're getting into. Cause that would annoy me. I can't front. I couldn't do that all day long with you up and down the walls from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., honey. You have to have a seat sometimes. So I appreciate that she was being honest with him. And I think that firefly, sorry, energy is something that when you let somebody know that up front, they could decide if they really want to deal with that or not. And Don seems open. So next up, we got Sharice and Antonio, and Sharice is meeting Antonio inside a bar. I really loved her outfit; it was very cute, orange, like top and bottom. And Sharice is going to be meeting him at a restaurant. And when I tell you, Sharice's nasally voice still always throws me off. And then the fact that her voice is nasally and her face don't move, it's so much going on. But Sharice is literally already going to be my favorite part of this show because she's going to bring the energy and the drama that we need. That's important. And so Sharice is waiting for Antonio to show up, and she starts. I guess she must have looked out the window and saw him coming up the block, honey. And she immediately goes off because she cannot believe he is wearing a vest. So Antonio's walking up the street. He has this like, all burgundy outfit on, and then the back of his vest is like a decorated pattern. And Sharice is mad he don't have a jacket. And when I tell you, I could not believe this lady was literally going off on this man about this. And she just cannot believe his outfit is what it is. They get back and sit down and have a conversation. Sharice gets into the kids' conversation with him again. And now what once was not an issue for her has become. She's starting to wonder, like, hey, what is the dynamic between you and the mother of your kids if you have a young child and if you have 3 children? And she wants to know what that is because that could be a problem for her. And it may not be the best energy, especially when it comes to change around his children. He says that, anything is possible with baby mama drama, but he said he doesn't really have any. She says, well, how would your child's mother feel about the fact that a new woman be coming into your life? Would it be a problem? Introducing me to the kids and all that kind of stuff. He said that, anything could sort of be a problem, but he doesn't foresee an issue, but he cannot determine how that would turn out. He said the reason that he's not in a relationship anymore is because it was toxic. I feel like they should have dug deeper into that situation. But he says that, it's over now and there's, nothing that they can really do about it but learn from their mistakes and co-parent well together. And he also just talked about, the fact that he feel like, part of what their drama was played into the military. And I really want to know more about their story, but I know we don't have a lot of time with him. I'm really wondering if the drama came into the fact that he was in the military, because what it's making me think of is the traditional military story that we know of people who will end up seeing with like a couple of kids and they was in the military where they was like constantly deployed and they kept having children, because the time frame of the 4-year-old and the I think 11-year-old is thrown for me, and that gives me deployments. That gives me, at the office too much, and we constantly trying to work through problems and issues, and we think maybe fixing a baby is going to do it, or we have one night of passion after not speaking for months on end, and you deployed anyway. You get back here, we end up doing it, and then I end up pregnant again. I'm getting that he had a military marriage, and that makes me wonder if that's where a lot of the drama in his situation, resides. But Sharice's still angry about this vest, honey. And I have to say, when I saw him and I saw her complain about that vest, it immediately took me to a Nicki Minaj moment with Safari.
The jacket looks great. Yes. I don't know what you're talking about, but every woman in here is gonna like that. Please, you wore a jean vest.
So now it's time for Venetia and Jabari's date, and I, obviously like the chemistry between these two, but I did not understand Venetia's outfit, honey. What was going on with that sateen top at the top, and that was brown. It was very sultry, and then we go down to these random satin green pants, and then I didn't understand Venetia's outfit, and usually she gets it right to a certain degree in the fashion department. So I was just disappointed in this look. But he was as casual as ever, honey. But I just didn't understand the color combo, especially because the top was so pretty. And I was just thinking, like, okay, this could have been a different kind of pair of pants. But that drawstring and that neon green, it was what it was. If Anisha had such a great shape, I didn't understand why she just didn't make a different decision on the color combo. But they go off to have coffee and beignets, honey. And they're having their conversation and they're getting down to, just more questions about Jabari and him as a father, and specifically how often does he get to Texas? Because he mentioned that he goes to Texas, he has some people there, and then, he obviously knows Venetia lives there. He mentions that he got there a lot when he was, before his daughter started going there, and now he doesn't go there as much. And that threw me off because I'm thinking if your child is there, you would actually be there more often and not less often since your kid is there. But okay. He also moves on and she asks him about, his role as a father. And he says that, being a father is really important to him. And, where does he see his life going? And he says that essentially, he only got, I think he only has the daughter. And so he just mentions that, his main thing is just, you know, possibly still working in a couple of years from now. He might be retired. He wants to travel. He wants to help his daughter get through her master's degree program if that's what she wants to do. Just being a good dad and just having a good time, because he's about to be an empty nester similar to Venetia. And, he said he's just in a stage in his life where he's grown up a lot. He used to be a guy that was a little bit less serious, but he's really matured. And he's just looking to, meet his person and just live out the rest of his life on a chill vibe. And I understand that completely. He also says that, he's over the stage in his life of being what he considered to be a player. Honey, I don't know where that was, but I was feeling Jabari's answers in this. It felt very straightforward. It felt very much like a grown man who has grown into maturity and understanding about where he is in life. He's clearly active in his children's life, or his child's life rather. And he clearly kind of has it shaped out as to where he'll be, with the next couple of years. And I think that's what Venetia was looking for. Vern says that she likes him, and she does think he's a smooth talker. She knows that they have a lot in common, and that's making her attracted to him. But she also realized that she wants to keep her options open, because when she dealt with Joel L in the last season, she basically locked in with him at like the very beginning, and she never really looked at anybody else. It was just her and Joel, and that was her energy. Joel actually spent a little bit of time entertaining some of the other women, but she didn't do that as much, and it cut her off from meeting other people, and she doesn't want to make that same mistake. So even though she's feeling him, she says she's just not going to do that to herself. Next up, we got Zadia and Jabari. He back out for a second time. And Jabari's back like we never left. Him and Zadia are going to like a holistic shop. They're going to like a mystical shop. And they're just talking about the things that they have in common. And we see these all the time, all in through Louisiana, especially in New Orleans. They have candles and crystals and tarot cards and incense and oil and all different types of stuff that they're like looking at all over the shop. And all of a sudden they get approached by, I believe I want to say it's the shop owner, but it could just be somebody who's a tarot card reader. And basically now she wants to read their cards. So Jabari asked her, is she open? She says, yes, she's open. And Zadia also appreciates the fact that she's getting to know more about him through this process. They're already having a good conversation when they meet up, but she likes the fact that he's open to this. This is how you do it, Marie. You just don't spring stuff like this on people. Like you're openly in some place you both agree to be with on a spiritual level, and then you're asking that person, are they comfortable with that situation? And then that person is comfortable, and you get your cards read. So they sit down with the card reader, and she said she pulls the Queen of Cups as their first card, and she said that card is for Zadia, and that basically means that you have to be like true to one thing, and you sort of know what your intuition is kind of telling you like where you should, reside, and you have to stick to that. And then she pulls the second card, which is like the card of swords, and that is for Jabari. And she basically said that it's a card about decisiveness, and that you're supposed to again follow your intuition, kind of similar things, and you're supposed to stay focused on, you have to make a decision about the things that you're interested in or not interested in, and you have to be clear about your decision. Zadia asks, the same question kind of that Venetia asked about where his dreams, his goals are for himself, and how does he see things playing out in a relationship. Their energy just gave me like, I don't know, just it was kind of friendship like, and I think that's what Zadia also got by the end of this episode. But she does ask one question to him that I thought was very interesting and specific. Is she asked him to be more specific in his answers, which is weird because again the specific thing is coming up, and she gave such a hard time to the school principal. She also like tells him to tell her about herself, and isn't that what that guy asked her? It's just very much given she wanted to be a problem. So Zadia says that, in relationship to her path in life, she sees herself married, traveling with her spouse, but does not foresee children. And more specifically, having children herself. So he says, like, that's a very distinctive thing. So you don't want to have any more kids. But then she kind of says that she wants more kids. Zadia don't know what she want to do. So she basically just says she doesn't want to be a single, but she does make it clear that she doesn't want to be a married single mother. And that if she does have kids, she wants to be with a man and not completely, understand where she's coming from because it's stressful out here. So the dates are over and it's the next day, and the ladies are just hanging out at the house, and Zadia is hanging outside, just getting some peace and quiet to herself. And Ashley walks outside and they start to have a little bit of a chit chat. And I have to say, this was another favorite scene for me. I really love that they're showing the ladies bonding on the show. This may be the direction we need to go in, period, for the show. I love the peacefulness of this. I love the transition of these people just sort of in a smaller group. Maybe there's more connection. Maybe there's a little friction, but not that much. Maybe with the larger groups, it's just kind of annoying at this point. And maybe with the smaller groups, maybe if they flip this and do this with the men having to pick through the women, I think we'll also just find like a lot more bonding, a lot more positivity, some of the things that people were hoping came back to the show. But we still want a little bit of drama, honey. Anyway, they're having a very connecting conversation, and Ashley sort of says, "I'm going to sit with my feet in the pool," and Zadia joins her. And so they start having a discussion about how they feel going through the process. And Ashley says, she loves that she's going through the process with the other ladies, similar to earlier in the show, because it really helps them to bond. But it's nice to have people who are going through the process with you, who you can get to know with and connect as well. And Zadia says that she agrees, but she can't be staying up late the way Ashley be wanting them to, because Ashley be trying to hang out all night. And she said, I could, hang out with you for maybe like another hour. But after that, I got to head to the bed. And Ashley, like, as long as I get my quality time, it was a very, very, very cute scene. So Ashley says that she's thinking about making turkey burgers for the ladies later. And we know Zadie is a fitness girl. So she's like, well, how you make your turkey burgers? And so Ashley goes, I could cook. You know what I'm saying? She said, I done had 2 restaurants. You can Google me. And she said, I had one restaurant, me and my family had a restaurant that was named, I guess, after her. And then the second restaurant they had is a place called like Spanky's Barbecue. And then all of a sudden, Ashley gets emotional and we find out that, it was at the second restaurant that Ashley's father was killed, and specifically her stepfather. And Ashley goes into a story about how, her stepfather was trying to help break up a fight at the second restaurant one day with some customers outside. And it resulted in, him ended up getting shot by someone who was upset about the situation. And so, she lost her stepdad that day. And her stepdad has been, a driving force in her life. He wasn't her father, but he pretty much raised her. So he was her father. And, he was the person that set in tone, you know, treating her with a certain level of respect that she expects from any man, that he set the standards. And I completely identify with that. Specifically about, I didn't have a stepdad. My dad was my biological father, but just setting the tone, having a father who sets in the value system that you have to have. And when you meet a man, you're expecting him to meet those things because that's who your father was. So, she gets very emotional and she starts to feel like, her father was her superhero, and she feels like that's what she's been searching for in a lot of these men. She starts to link the things that have happened in her past tragedy wise with her dad with how she sees her relationship with men and what she's always seeking out in guys. And she wonders if that's been a hindrance or a help. In my opinion, that can't help but be a positive thing, because then you have a standard for excellence. You have a standard for what you know how far somebody will go for love and the love of their child. And in a relationship, if your parents are married still, a love of, what they expect to show up as a husband and a father. So then when you go out in the world, you see all the knuckleheads out there, you're not just picking just anybody, because you have to fit certain expectations. And I think her father being a provider and a protector is 2 things that she knew. So she's looking for nothing less than that, and nor should she. So she worries that those struggles are messing with her in her real life because she put her father on such a high pedestal. But like I said, I just think it's amazing expectations and qualities to meet. Now, I will say this: immediately when you meet somebody, they may not meet those exact expectations, because your parents don't, they love you unconditionally from the start. But over time, you should be looking from that in your mate, because that's what makes the qualities of a good parent, essentially a future parent and a husband. So I had no issues with this, but her and Zadia connect. She says that she's sorry, that she's crying. And Zadia said there's nothing wrong with being a vulnerable girl. There's nothing weak about that situation. I love the bonding moment with the 2 of them. So now we back in the living room later on that afternoon with the matchmaker honey in her Cape Crusader lime green dress. And she's talking to the ladies to just sort of divvy out what happened on their individual dates and to find out, was it a link up? Was it a match? What do I need to do to get involved? And she starts off with Venetia, and Venetia says, "Hey, look, me and Jabari hit it off very well. We had the same kind of connection we had at the house. Miss Venetia don't miss honey. When that first link up, they be into her. But she says that her and Jabari hit it off. They had no issues. They got along really well and they have a lot in common. And before the end of the night, he asked for her number. So, they're good. They link over to Zadia real quick and kind of show she got a little bit of a frown on her face. But she goes back to Venetia, says that that's great. It's wonderful that y'all were able to link up on your first thing. You should keep yourself open. And Venetia says, yeah, it's cool that we connected, but I'm keeping my options open. And Tamika like immediately jumps in. She said, because I'm keeping my options open because I linked in too early and that was my last problem. And she jumps in and starts, no, don't do that. It was just so weird because she was trying so hard to let her know, like, you need to be open to the process and don't be so negative. Don't bring your past experience into the situation, which I don't know how you can't do that. You can only go off of what you previously experienced and you're trying not to make the same mistake twice. So that made no sense to me. And it's basically bringing her down in my ranking as a matchmaker. And did she know what she really doing, or did they just pick somebody from anywhere? Vernisha says, look, girl, I'm not trying to be closed off to the process. I'm here. I done bought my ass to New Orleans. All I'm saying is I'm going to be smarter about not locking in so early because that's what she did with Joelle. And she closed herself off to more positive experiences. It made complete sense. I don't know where that lady was going with that. Um, so then she asked Zadia, you went on the same, on a date with Jabari as well. How did it go with you? And Zadia said, we had a positive, experience and it was good, but it felt more friend zone than anything. She said they had great banter as previously, and I completely agree. And she said, but it doesn't feel like to me like it was necessarily a love match. So then instead of going to Sharice and going to Ashley, Tamika interrupts again and goes, hey, look, this don't even matter. Because here's another thing about the process that's changing. Although you got to pick your first date, I, as a matchmaker, am going to pick your second one based on the information I've collected about you, the things I know about what you're looking for, and the selection of men that we have. And then you will decide after you go on this date with this man who you will continue to couple and link up with. So it just basically gave me mini Love Island energy. You just keep either staying with your connection or you'll go to somebody new. I was like, okay, Ready Love, I see y'all borrowing from the other shows. So all of the men that they went out with today will still be in a category, but they will then be linked up with a new person from Tamika's batch based on the information she has for them. And then they will go out with that man. And from that situation, they will determine if they want to keep the man she gave them or go with the person they already had. And that seems to be how the process of the show is going to go, but we don't really know because this is all new to us and to them. So the ladies are a bit concerned because they feel like they're being, could they be overwhelmed with choices, and what happens if they like the person? What happens if we both like the same people? They've got some concerns, but they're still open. So she lets them know that their new dates are going to be her choice and they're going to be meet them soon. And that's where the episode ends. Like I said before, I'm really into this unique version of the show. I like the size down group of women that they have. I like that the women are getting to choose the men and it's solely focused on them and not the other way around. And if they flip it, I think it'll be smart as well. I love that there's less noise, less fervor, less in between fighting. I mean, what they've shown us for the upcoming season, there's going to be some personality things, and we expect that. But so much of it and so much of the drama that we had, it took away from the love aspect and the linking aspect that we liked about this show. And I like how they're focusing more on the women bonding and connecting, to a certain degree, even if they don't necessarily find their person. And I think the unique spin about whether or not you'll move to this city is also a nice added part. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the review. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Let me know in the comments below. How do you feel about the new design? How do you feel about the new host? How do you think that this whole season is going to go? I'll catch you on the next one. Bye. As always, y'all, let me know what you thought about the episode down in the comments. Thank you for watching and see you next time.